Hello and welcome to another episode of the SME Focus Show powered by MTDCNC. I'm your host, Christopher Greenough, and in this series we focus on SMEs within the British manufacturing sector and indeed those supporting the sector. Every week we discuss and analyse the challenges and opportunities facing the sector in these unprecedented times. I've worked in the sector for over 29 years and I'm CCO at SD Technology. So hopefully you can understand this show is very much for manufacturers and indeed by manufacturers. Joining me today, I've got great pleasure in introducing my friend Ninder Johal, who is one of the Midlands' leading businessmen working with local government to create wealth for the region. And I've just attended his Midlands Summit. Ninder, hello and welcome.
Hi, and good afternoon to you, Chris, and thank you for the intro and thank you for the invite.
You're welcome. So, as I said, I attended your Midlands Summit. Fantastic day. Tell me about the key takeaways for you and for businesses.
Yeah, so the Midlands Economic Summit is different in the sense that we have some fantastic events in the West, and I'm in the West Midlands. We also have some great events in the East Midlands, but we didn't have something that brought the two together. And of course, the East and West do share one similarity, that they're both strong at manufacturing, advanced manufacturing and life sciences. So they're very strong there. And the other reason was that I know we've had the election now, but certainly when the Tories were in place, they saw the importance of the Midlands, and therefore they then set up an organisation called the Midlands Engine, which sort of recognised the role of the Midlands. And we are talking 860 billion GDP, so it's a big economic area. In fact, it's the largest outside of London. And because it was so large and because it's so focused on manufacturing and of course all the other sectors, but manufacturing is key, it made sense to bring the two disparate regions together. Yes, prior to the summit they were politically different, and now of course they're more politically aligned because the Mayor of the East Midlands is Labour and the Mayor of the West Midlands is Labour, and of course now the national government is Labour, so there is some alignment there. And it'll be just interesting how the three things come together. And at the centre of it should be the private sector and SMEs.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned the two mayors, both now Labour mayors. So there's bound to be some crossover there, some working together, some mutual benefit for both sides, surely.
Yeah, I mean, there is a caveat there, which is in the East Midlands, Leicester are not part of the East Midlands jigsaw, which is interesting. So it'll be interesting to see how the mayor navigates around a third of the region not being involved. So that will be interesting. But you're absolutely right, based on yesterday's King's speech and what the two newly elected mayors, you can remember that, even though the West Midlands has been around for 3 terms, it is 3 terms, now is the 3rd term, we have a new mayor, a new team, a new set of objectives. And as for the East Midlands, they're completely brand new office, setting up the infrastructure. So it's going to take them a while to catch up and sort of set forth that strategy to get in place.
Absolutely. You mentioned, so this week we've had the King's speech, setting out what he expects from his ministers. We've got a new Labour government. Thankfully for me, they actually mentioned an industrial strategy. What do you see we need to kickstart the economy?
I think so. One of the issues about the previous government, that it was very much reactive. So they would react to a situation. For example, around the battery, the gigafactory, they were always reacting. Around the role of steel, they were always reacting. Where the automotive industry is going, they were always reacting. And whilst people will agree or disagree with the 2030, 2035 green energy and net zero, there just didn't appear to be consistency. So the industrial strategy will be great. We've heard it for the first time. And Chris, you and I heard the terminology with the previous government. They actually had a department named after it. If you remember, the Department of Industrial Strategy, Business and something, I've forgotten now. It had so many connotations. But you and I were involved at the local level. There's importance here when we say local. We were involved in the local level in setting up an industrial strategy for our local area, which would then feed into the national picture. Now, I didn't get that in the King's speech. What I got from the King's speech was an industrial strategy top down. I could be wrong, and it might be the detail. So whereas the previous attempted industrial strategy was bottom up. So it would be interesting what that looks like. Secondly, I run a small business. So therefore, the bottom up meant SMEs were involved.
Yeah.
We don't know whether this industrial, what do they call it? Was it a society? I can't remember the word they used, the council or something.
Council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't know what that looks like sectorally. We don't know what it looks like regionally. We don't know what it looks like size-wise. In other words, SMEs, large businesses. So the devil's in the detail. So that will be important. So the problem always of top-down is it becomes cumbersome. It becomes detached from the UK at the sharp level. So, but listen, maybe they've got it all worked out and we just don't know the details. So that's my only concern, top-down, and we're missing local and we're missing SMEs at the moment. But that might change.
Absolutely. And it's no good just having policy driven by bigger businesses, by decision makers without involving SMEs, because they've missed the mark. With 99% of businesses being SME, there's got to be an involvement. And from people like you, the West Midlands Combined Authority, you've got to have that feed in.
Well, I think, and certainly I have nothing against big business, but what you've got to remember about big business is normally they're multinational.
Yeah.
And therefore, wherever those headquarters are, they won't blink to pull a business out of its community. They won't blink to shut it down. SMEs, generally speaking, are loyal to their community because the employees come from the local community. SMEs service that community with their products, so there's a bit of a fit between the community and the SMEs, and they're there for the long-term family businesses. So multinationals are important, large businesses are important, but you always think long-term, it's the SMEs that will stick around, that will be loyal to their community and will feel the sharp pain and benefit if something is right or not right. So those are my only concerns as of yesterday. I didn't hear the word SME somewhere. I didn't hear that anywhere. I remember leading up to the election. So this is the election date hadn't been called then, but and I went to a Labour event, and I bumped into Richard Parker, who's the West Midlands mayor, and I bumped into Rachel Reeves a couple of times, and I did whisper, listen, if the election starts, please make sure you mention SMEs in your election campaign, because I said, I'm not hearing it from either party. To be honest, I didn't hear it during the election campaign. No. And I'm not surprised now that we haven't heard it now, because normally you can start to sell. That, again, it might be early doors, might be early. So if anything, I think they do need to look at that. And I suppose the other bit we need to be careful about is when you build big, I'm going to be careful, not quangos, but big organizations, the decision making becomes slow.
Yes.
It takes ages to come down. The beauty of the local enterprise partnerships were that actually those boards at the local level were populated by local business people, and they were from different backgrounds, different sites in different sectors. I still don't see that local voice. So again, early doors. I just hope they don't spend loads of money setting up national organizations completely out of sync at the local level. So those are my I suppose my final thing. The Midlands region, 22% of all exports.
Yes.
A lot of manufacturers. I didn't hear anything about international post-Brexit. I heard nothing about international. I heard nothing about the Midlands being cited. And in previous budgets, you did hear. So again, early doors. But those are my sort of comments. I think one positive, definitely, I think was good was the fact that they've given more allegiance to the OBR means investors from abroad will see us as a lot more stable.
Yes.
Good. I suppose, I know this sounds strange, I think the government's opposition now is no longer who sits opposite them in the parliament. It's actually the external financial markets. So they're the ones who are going to tell us what they think of government policy by the way the markets react.
Absolutely.
In fact, almost the opposition parties, not the Tories or Reform, it'll be the external financial markets, like they did with Truss. they brought the government down, didn't they? The
Yes.
financial markets brought the government down. So I think the financial markets will be the ones to watch, because then we'll get an idea of what the external world thinks of the government. I think they're now unofficially unofficially the opposition.
Ninder, you mentioned manufacturing, which is great. That brings me on to your Midlands Economic Summit 2025. Tell me the changes that are going to happen next year.
Okay, so for 2025, we're now extending it into a 2, potentially 3-day summit.
Super.
So the first day will be the usual economic and political landscape. Day 2, we're looking at tech or manufacturing, and day 3 will be manufacturing or tech. So we're now exploring the art of the possible. We're now talking to a lot of people, trying to get the 3 days together. But for us, whether it's next year or the year after, it depends on availability and getting all the venues. You cannot ignore manufacturing when it comes to the Midlands. You can't. The Midlands is manufacturing, and I think we need to bring manufacturing to the fore. There's no point talking about manufacturing sitting in London, and no disrespect to London, they're a financial powerhouse, but actually the Midlands is a manufacturing powerhouse. And I think the way onshoring is now working, and I think the fact that we need to now sort out our skills so that we can build new factories, get the skills in. I think the more self-reliant we can be. And COVID taught us a lot of things. And I think if you look at the intensity of the global uncertainty around war and then goods aren't moving around as quick as they used to, I think we need to be a lot more self-reliant. But I think a couple of things happened. I think the finance people weren't interested in financing manufacturing. They wanted it outsourced. In fact, some banks were cited as saying to manufacturers, we'll only give you the money if you outsource it. I heard that a number of times. So I think finance will now start to look differently. An industrial strategy, if it's done the right way,
will help.
Will help if they, when the detail comes out and they say, we need to make sure we're self-reliant. And I think thirdly, if we can get those two going, then we can encourage trainers, colleges, university schools to start thinking of manufacturing as a key industry to get into. I think with technology, and we'll have a tech day at the Economic Summit, the way technology is going, we can now start to compete and have the right skilled people to run technology, to run our factories. So I think next year at the summit, the influence of tech and manufacturing is going to be intertwined. Tech is great not only at servicing things, but tech will be the source through which you deliver things. So I think the link between tech, particularly new product development and channels of distribution, tech and manufacturing come together will be highly important when it comes to UK economy. And of course, skills as well.
Fantastic. Ninder, I look forward to catching up with you before the summit, but pencil me in. I would like to be involved in that summit because I think it's key to UK manufacturing that our region is recognised. Thank you for your time today, and we'll catch up soon.
And thank you once again for the invite.
Thank you, Ninder. Take care.
Bye-bye.
That brings us to the end of another show. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to meeting more of our great British manufacturers and indeed those like Ninder supporting the sector. If you would like to get in touch with the show with a comment, a suggestion, or even to appear on a future episode, please email us inquiries@mtdcnc.com. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. So from me, Chris G at SDE, goodbye.